Okay, here is how you interpret 1 Kings 18. I should know because I've got it wrong over 600 times so far. Elijah went up to the top of Mount Carmel, meaning garden land. That is him going to the maximum authority of Zoa, which is the 2NC installation on 2012 Chislev 21, which is the late 2NC Pentecost. The late one because it's the second installation over the 2NCs, the first one being the Adamic installation of FGS4 prior to Zoa. Zoa began in 2012, 14-16, when we died to Adam and were resurrected non-Adamically to Abraham. So it's a second installation, hence it happens at the second Pentecost, the late 2NC Pentecost, not the first one on Heshvan 21, the second one, the late one on Chislev 21. So then he says to his attendant, go up, look in the direction of the sea. The Hebrew word for go up can mean come up or go up. It's like the Greek word. The Greeks don't know whether they're coming or going, and neither do the Hebrews. We make a distinction in English between coming and going, they don't. So it could mean come up to where I am, or it could mean go up. So because of that, it must mean come up, because I didn't ask anybody to go to a very, very late 2NC festival, but they would automatically be installed as I was, because we're all part of the same administration of Zoa. So go up, look in direction of the sea, is come up, look in direction of the sea. Come and join me at this installation, 2012 Chislev 21. Now look for a fire sign. The next prediction we had after Chislev 21, we didn't have Chislev 21 itself as a prediction, but we had Chislev 24. So go up and look. So you go up on the 21st, installed, and when you're in the position of having been installed, you look on the 24th, because you're still up there. You're up there for the entire installation until you leave the church, basically, or the church becomes false, which doesn't happen. So on the 24th you look and you see nothing at all. Then he says to the attendant, go back 7 times. Not from when you looked, but from the Pentecost, although actually it makes no difference. So 7 years after 2012 Chislev 21 is 2019 Chislev 21, or after 24 is 2019 Chislev 24. So you then have a 0th Sabbath on, a 0th, Pentecostal festival going up and looking between the 21st and the 24th when there's nothing at all. Actually, we also predicted the 25th to Tebeth 2, which is Hanukkah, when there's nothing at all. So there's a whole period from the 24th of 2012 Chislev 24 to 2012 Tebeth 2 when there's nothing at all. So that's the 0th Sabbath. Then you go back for 7 Pentecostal festival Sabbaths, and that is most of a Pentecost pattern other than the Pentecost itself. And this is defining a super Pentecostal pattern, not in weekly Sabbaths, but in festival Sabbaths, with a 0th Sabbath, 7 Sabbaths, and then a Pentecost. Now the Pentecost cannot be a further example of a 2NC Sabbath. That would just be a late version of the 7th Sabbath. It has to be another type of Pentecost. So the next another type of Pentecost after 2019 Chislev 21 was in fact 2019 Shabbat 9, the 5th marriage Pentecost. Now we had imagined there was a 3rd marriage Pentecost and a 4th marriage Pentecost, but there wasn't, because you can't make a part of a bride operational as a bride. She can be operational as other things, but not as a bride. So she can be appointed to do something else at some other point, but she doesn't get a bridal Pentecost until she's completed. So there's only one bridal Pentecost for the 3rd Holy Spirit, and that was from the 5th marriage, the completion of that wife on Chislev 20, 2019, running to Shabbat 9, which is a really important Pentecost. And after then is when all the blessings can occur, because you've got a completed Holy Spirit. When that which is complete arrives, says Paul. Well, that happened on Shabbat 9. It was a really, really big deal. And then on Shabbat 10, we made the prediction that the fire signs would occur before Shabbat 23, and that has to be true. A, because it's the day after the Holy Spirit became operational, and B, because it's the Jericho Jubilee release, so we don't have to go around in circles anymore, because it's the 10th day of the 8th month of the 7th year of the Jericho campaign, which began for us in Zoe years on 2013 Tammuz 1, so that the the 8th month is Shabbat, and the 10th day is Shabbat 10. So what I'm saying is, therefore, this prediction I'm now going to make has to be correct. And let me explain, continue to explain how 1 Kings 18 works. So once you've got the Super Pentecost, the zeroed Sabbath, Festival Sabbath, Pentecostal Festival Sabbath, and no show of 2012 Chislev 21 with a subsequent no show on the 24th, 25th to Tebeth 2. You then count the 7th Sabbath, which is 2013 Chislev 21 to 2019 Chislev 21. You then go to the next type of Pentecost, for the Super Pentecost, which is the 5th marriage Pentecost on 2019 Shabbat 9. Then it says it came about on the 7th. Now I understand that after 600 attempts. It means any type of 7th. It can be the first of such an example. So it could be the first weekly Sabbath, and we thought it was. That would have been Shabbat 15. It wasn't. It could be the first Pentecostal Sabbath. That would be Shabbat 21, the 4th 2NC Pentecost. It is for the 3rd fire sign. It could be the 7th Sabbath of a Pentecost. That would be Shabbat 20. It is for the 2nd fire sign. And if you can think of another 7th, it could be the first example of that too. It just means the first 7th of some type after the Super Pentecost is when this will occur. Now that is not quite sufficient to nail it. We need to bring in some other scriptures. As I said, one is that, well, we have to have it right because on Shabbat 10 we had to get it right. And so we've only got to Shabbat 23 and we ran out of 7ths other than the 20th and the 21st prior to that date. But then you've got the 4 Sabbaths of Jesus' monosynagogue teaching of Luke 13, because it says that he was teaching in one of the synagogues, one out of the Greek plural synagogues, counts as 2 times. In Sabbaths, that counts as another 2 times. So that's 4 times of Sabbaths. And he teaches in one synagogue when the other synagogue, Laodicea, true church, has fallen. And they fell on Tebeth 22. So you count 4 Sabbaths from then, weekly Sabbaths, and they are Tebeth 24, Shabbat 1, Shabbat 8, Shabbat 15. So we again thought it'd be Shabbat 15, but actually it doesn't have to be. It has to be between Shabbat 15, on or after that date, and before Shabbat 22, which is the 5th. So now we know that the fire signs have to be not only prior to Shabbat 23, but also prior to Shabbat 22 from Luke 13, which means they've got to be at the latest Shabbat 21. And today is Shabbat 18. So we're going for 20 and 21. But that nails it a bit more. And then Acts 2 insists that there's a violent explosion or a report of such from heaven. Either there's a report from heaven of a violent explosion, or there's a report of a violent explosion in heaven, or however you look at it, on a Pentecost. So that would be Shabbat 21, which is a Pentecost. And then 2 Kings 1 says that the chief of the 50 and the 50 are consumed by the fire, which means there's one fire sign at the Pentecost itself and another one during the 50 count, which will be prior to the Pentecost. Well, it wouldn't have to be, because actually the blooming chief of the Pentecost is part of the 50 count, because it's a 50 count and he's number 50. So if he's an inclusive chief, which in this case he is for the 4th 2NC Pentecost, you could have 2 fire signs actually on Shabbat 21. So what we're saying is the 2nd fire sign is on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, February 19, 2021, and the 2nd fire sign is on Thursday, Friday, February 2021. And these are Shabbat 20 or 21 for the 2nd fire sign, and Shabbat 21 for the 3rd fire sign. And those are the reasons. May God keep you safe from them. Incidentally, this coronavirus, we do think it is the plague, the deadly plague of Revelation 6:8. And the 4th horseman kills with deadly plague, which means it's man-made, made by demon-possessed men, basically. And WMD, a long sword, which is a WMD, and wild beasts of the earth, which is rogue or badly behaved governments. Now, you might say, well, that means the 4th horseman is riding already, and how can it be we haven't got the 3rd horseman or the 2nd horseman, which is war? Well, the answer is not riding yet, because war, the 2nd horseman, is not riding, but there are wars. And the fourth horseman is only riding when many countries, most countries in the world, are affected by this coronavirus. At the moment, not many are. It's mainly Chinese and that cruise ship at present. But if we're right, that will expand. And he only has authority to kill a fourth part of the earth, which means that he can only kill actually the part, 25% of us, who aren't going to be saved. So if you're going to be saved, you may get the flu, but you won't die of it. He cannot kill you with it. You will be shielded from death by God. That doesn't only apply to coronavirus, it applies to WMDs, it applies to everything, governments, the lot. Once the day of Jehovah is in force, once that day is in force, his shield is in place. And what that means is, you don't get to kill his people. It doesn't happen. He looks after them. I am a shield for you, he said to Abraham, before he explained to him when he would get the kingdom. So that's going to be very sci-fi and very interesting to see how that pans out. Now the other thing is that the time of distress began, this is really beautiful, the time of distress began on 2019 February 21. We got that right. And that was the day when the first case of coronavirus was reported in Washington State. And one is distressed by this virus. I mean, you know, we've had stuff like that before. The Spanish flu killed 20 million people. That's a far bigger deal than coronavirus so far. That would have caused much more distress. But nonetheless, it has caused distress and is causing distress. But it has to become an unprecedented distress, which it is yet to become. So, you know, that's a sort of, it's not a proof, it's an indication that we may have this chronology right. But we have plenty of proof from the scriptures that we have it right. Anyway, that's I think how you do interpret 1 Kings 18, Luke 13 and Jericho account of Joshua 6. Thanks very much.